And I mentioned Ferrari at one point. As well about them potentially creeping back into this picture. And my thoughts on Ferrari, my question really, another big performance this weekend, this one by the boys in red. Ferrari, are they back in this? That's the big question I wanted to ask. After a P4, P6 finish, Lewis Hamilton's best feature race finish so far this season, Charles Leclerc, P6, pretty solid for a guy who's been there, done that. Not quite the desired result if you're a Charles Leclerc, but after an abysmal qualifying on Saturday, what can we glean from that? The confidence for this upcoming weekend, for instance, especially, with all the glitz and glamour of Monaco for the Monegasque driver, the reigning Monaco Grand Prix winner in Charles Leclerc. What does qualifying on Saturday mean as it translates to Sunday? Well, if the performance looks a lot better on Sunday, that's fantastic for almost every other circuit, but maybe not quite so Monaco. But what does this indicate for at least the broader sense of the rest of the season? I think overall, it's one of those deals where we've seen so many highs and lows from Ferrari. Saturdays, if this is the trend of poor qualifying performance, I think that their poor qualifying are just going to keep them, again, outside of the race. We talked about clean air being so important. If Ferrari can't quite figure out their car, if Ferrari can't quite figure out the development side of things, they're going to continue to be this, ahead of the midfield, but back at the top four kind of packed. And it was a standout Sunday for the Scuderia. A couple of yellow flags also helping with good strategy calls at certain moments, maybe frustrating strategy calls for Charles Leclerc at certain moments as well. But the questions really are, is the trajectory of the car correct? And they've seen some wild performance swings this season. It seems to affect the way that they're developing the car. It seems like they have a great moment in China, but then they fall back when it comes to some of the other races like Australia, right? They have a really good weekend here in Imola, right, this past weekend. But as we walk into Monaco, if their performance is terrible on Saturday, it's certainly not going to translate well on Sunday. They walk into Spain, which is a lot more of a conducive track to get a lot more information from, a lot more data from for at least the rest of the season. If they're still rough on Saturdays, it's probably not going to translate well to overall performance on Sundays. They've had one podium so far this season outside of the sprint format. I think it was Charles Leclerc getting that podium in Jeddah. So, yeah, Ferrari are just a little bit too all over the place at this point of the season. It's really hard to take anything firm and solid away from Ferrari because they've just been so inconsistent. I'm really curious to see what they do. Ferrari, obviously, one of the great teams in Formula One. I'm sure they're going to be bringing upgrades on upgrades. This is a team that has the infrastructure and the funding to absolutely support putting a little bit of extra money into this season because I know they're going to have it on the back end for 2026 as well to still develop the car and stay within cost cap. But overall, I think right now, maybe it's just a little bit too early to say as far as what's the ceiling for Ferrari right now. Right now, maybe they just reached their ceiling as far as the feature races are concerned, but I just don't quite see them crawling out quite so quickly.